My name is Kristin Lieb, and I'm an assistant professor in the Marketing Communication Department at Emerson College. In 2013, I released my first book called Gender Branding in the Modern Music Industry, The Social Construction of Female Popular Music Stars on Routledge. My book is an interdisciplinary work that draws on a number of different disciplines in order to look at a gender problem in the contemporary music industry. I look at female pop stars as short-term person brands. That is, people who are engineered to last, in the general case, for about 5 to 10 years. This is different than most of the brands that we focus on building for the long term. My book also describes the life cycle that many of these most prominent female popular music stars must travel through in order to achieve superstardom and then stay at that level of prominence as long as they can. One of the organizing frameworks for the book is Wendy Griswold's Cultural Diamond. The Cultural Diamond basically says that pop culture and society are mutually reinforcing, and then it sort of digs deeper into the ways in which that's true through the 4 points on the diamond. The first point on the diamond is called the social world, and that's basically the society we all live in. The second point is called the producer point. The producer, for the purposes of my book, is basically all of the artist handlers, all of the people who produce the pop culture that we consume. Third point on the cultural diamond is the audience point. That's all of us. Those are the people who sort of take the pop cultural offerings, the pop cultural objects, and turn them into something that makes sense for them. And then finally, we have the cultural object herself. In the case of my book, this would be a pop star, but it could also be something that the pop star creates, something like a magazine cover or a CD or a fragrance or a clothing line. So it's easy to say that hypersexualized portrayals of women arise for different reasons. A lot of people attribute it to one force or another. One person might say, it's the pop star. That's the way she wants to present herself to the world. Another person might say, well, it's men at record labels. Like, this is what they like, so this is what they do. Or other people could say, we live in a hypersexualized culture, so what else would you expect? But again, the points on the cultural diamond reinforce each other. So it's not any one person making a decision in isolation. It's all of these forces working together to sort of conspire to make female pop star representations what they are at this point in time. Gender branding in the modern music industry has 6 chapters. The first chapter looks at the critical frameworks for considering pop star brands. It sort of sets the reader up for what's coming and to understand the life cycle model that I contribute. These frameworks come primarily from sociology, mass communication, and marketing. Then the second chapter looks at female pop stars as brands. It constructs them as short-term person brands and sort of draws distinctions between brands that we might be more familiar with, long-term brands, or brands that don't have people at the center of them, and then it sort of looks at what's different about managing a brand when it's short-term in nature or when there's a human sitting at the center of it. The third chapter then moves into music industry dynamics. It's called The Modern Music Industry, and it looks at how these dynamics have changed as people have started buying more music digitally online or not buying music at all. This has put pressure on female pop stars and their handlers to figure out other ways to generate revenue. This means that female pop stars have to not only be able to sing and sort of present in public, but they have to be able to leverage their brands into many other different entertainment fields, such as movies or television or even clothing and fragrance lines. This chapter discusses all of that. The fourth chapter is the beginning of my life cycle model. This chapter takes on the first 2 phases, the good girl and the temptress, because every artist who wishes to achieve the highest level of success in the industry starts in those 2 positions. The 5th chapter then looks at the phases beyond the temptress in the life cycle model. It looks at the mid to late stage phases that female pop stars must inhabit if they wish to continue to succeed at the highest levels of the industry. The 6th chapter finally takes everything from the life cycle model and then puts it in an academic context. It says, here's what the industry professionals have told us about how these artists are constructed. Well then, what does academic literature tell us about why these music industry professionals have opted to represent these artists in these ways, thus closing the loop on the entire book. This book basically takes everything I did as a professional and then layers on top of that my understanding as an academic of what's at work in the way that we position people, in the way that we market in the music business. And I think it's useful because when you're a practitioner, you're so busy that you often don't really think about what you're doing. When you're taking a 30,000-foot view of things, you do think about things like that. So this book sort of tries to bring both practical experience and sort of theoretical knowledge together to sort of explain how representations of pop stars happen.